Hello and welcome to the Kick in the Creatives podcast, hosted by myself, Sandra Busby, and my fellow creative Tara Roskell, offering you interviews, inspiration, motivation, and a gentle prod in the right direction. And for lots more information, challenges, and other useful tools to help you get creating, you can go to kickinthecreatives.com. And of course, this is where you can also find today's show notes. Enjoy the show. Welcome to today's episode, which, at the request of one of our listeners, Debora, is all about abstract art. But before we get onto that, thanks so much to everyone who's been sharing their work with us on social media, the things they've been doing for the challenges. Keep them coming. We absolutely love seeing what you're doing. A huge thank you as well to our latest flurry of Ko-fi supporters. You know, since the running of Kick in the Creatives, the costs have gone up quite a bit recently, haven't they? So your help is so important to us, and we really, really appreciate it even more than ever. So thank you very much. It shows us that you like what we do and you'd like us to continue what we do. So we're going to thank each of you personally at the end of the show.
Yeah, and finally, want to thank our sponsor, Evolve. Evolve can teach you how to paint in a realism style to a professional level in a year or less, and for the fraction of a price of an art school, because that costs a blooming fortune. Not only do they provide all the lessons and support online, but they also send you all the materials you'll need. You can watch a free webinar from Evolve, and that's like a bit of a masterclass just to give you some tips on painting, by going to kickinthecreatives.com/Evolve webinar. Or if you want to hear more about the Evolve program, you can go back and listen to episode 67 and 73. Anyway, Sandra, what is new with you?
Well, anyone who listened to our last episode will know that I have been going through the biggest art, I don't know if you can call it a block, but loss of mojo that I've ever had since I started painting years ago. I've had them before, but if you want to go back and hear what's been going on, I'd suggest going back to the other one, because I don't want to bore you all with it again and say the same old things. But basically, if you did listen to that, I'm sure you want to know a bit of an update. Just to very briefly say that I was in a place where I had unsubscribed to every art email that I'd ever subscribed to, apart from Tara. Apart from yours and about two others, actually.
That's only because you knew I'd kill you.
No, I'd always want to know what you're up to. But it was really not because of I wasn't interested in what people were doing. It's more that it made me feel bad because I wasn't doing anything. Do you know what I mean by that? So having all of these, you know, and it's like I wasn't able to. I was off social media, mainly not because I didn't. Don't love other people's art, but it was making me feel worse about not creating myself. I couldn't bring myself to watch a YouTube video on any arty stuff because, again, just made me feel like, why can't, what is wrong with me? Why aren't I doing this? Why aren't I getting the same kick out of all this that I was? So it's been pretty dark, actually. But since we recorded, funny enough, I said to you at the end of the episode, didn't I? I actually felt better for chatting about it and being quite frank about it, and not hiding the fact. Because I even said to you, didn't I? I feel almost like a fraud, recording a podcast when I was feeling totally uninspired to create any art myself. So I worried about that, and then we recorded it anyway, and I felt quite a bit of relief, I think, just, I don't know, saying it out loud, saying exactly how I was feeling. And I
was your therapist, wasn't I?
You were. You did a pretty good job, actually. I never would have imagined you would.
I can make a fortune.
What I would say is I honestly didn't believe at one point that I was ever going to feel my want to create ever again. I literally thought, I'm going to delete my website, everything, because I'm just never going to do this again. Really odd. But since then, things have happened a little bit in that I just decided, well, just because I've done this episode and I've aired, my thoughts and everything, I'm not going to feel like I've got to rush out and try and get it back in time for the next episode. I'm just going to let myself have this block and just let it take its course and see what happens, if anything. But since then, I started getting a bit of a pull, actually, into the art room. Not to paint at all, but just to stick my hand in a pencil case and, feel a pen in my hand and do a little bit of sketching. And it was funny, actually, because the reason it happened is we had some deliveries come through for the office at work. In the delivery were these whiteboard pens, and they were all different colours. So they looked a bit like felt pens, that, but they had these spongy things on the end where you could kind of wipe it off the board. And it's really weird. I don't know what it was about just handling these pens. And it just, I don't know, it just made, tugged my heartstrings a bit and made me think, this looks fun, sort of thing.
Chunky marker.
Yeah, and it was just, I think it was just the colours, and I don't know, it just gave me that little, that little bit of excitement. I really fancy using these. Anyway, so I think a couple of days later I did go into the art room and I decided I was going to do some more blind contour, which I actually enjoyed, which was great because I didn't think I was going to enjoy anything again, but I really enjoyed it, and I didn't push it. I haven't pushed it. And I've done a few of those now. And what happened next? Oh, yes. So about 3 days ago, I went into a bakery, and there were these big, what are those buns called? They look like boobs, but they've got white icing on them and cherries on the top. What
they're
they called?
Not Danish,
Belgian. Are they Belgian buns? Iced Belgian buns or something?
Oh,
Chelsea buns. But basically, they're like these buns with these icing on the buns with these glacier cherries in the middle. And I was waiting for my crusty ham and salad roll, which I was going to take to work. And I just happened to look at these buns, and I thought, love the shine on that, cherry, and that icing, running down the side. I wonder what it'd be like to capture that, bread and, the bready bun bit. And I didn't buy one, but because I literally I didn't actually want to paint that particular bun, but it made me think, maybe what I want to do is paint a different subject. Not glass, not marbles, but something that I haven't done before. Because I remember doing that boiled egg. Do you remember the egg and soldier and that sort of thing? And I really enjoyed
I
those.
like that picture. Yeah,
and that was sort of different, I think, for me. And I enjoyed capturing the texture of the soldier dipping into the yolk and that sort of thing. And I haven't done anything like that since. So I came back with this kind of new level of inspiration, thinking, what I might do is buy a fairy cake. Well, I suppose a cupcake, the ones with the indulgence, dollop of icing on the top with a cherry on the top, something like that.
Yeah.
But, of course, a couple of days later, in fact, it was yesterday, I went back to the bakery to see if they had any, and they haven't. And she said, why don't you go to Waitrose? They have them. I thought, I don't really want to pack it, one. But then somebody else said, no, they do them in their bakery section. They do quite indulgent-looking ones. So I'm going to go back, and if they don't do one, I'm just going to make one. I'm just going to make one myself. And I think I might do I might paint some cupcakes, but that is where I'm at. So I haven't done much, but I have now got to that point where I feel like I'm feeling the pull, and I'm thinking, that could be fun. Which is
could you put a spoon in it or anything?
What, in a cupcake? Who eats a cupcake?
Well, yeah, so you wouldn't eat it with a spoon. I might.
Oh, yeah.
Or a cup of tea with it with a spoon. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, that's a bit twee,
Too twee, maybe.
Yeah. But I did think about doing one where it's sort of like, a piece broken off and you've got all the texture inside.
Yeah.
So you've got the gooiness and then you've got the kind of spongy. But that is the best I have felt for about, I don't know, how long has it been? A couple of months, I guess, where I've been feeling really, really blocked. So I can only imagine now that things are going to get better. I hope so. So,
do you like those buns, by the way? Do you like?
I love
a
them.
cupcake? Are you sure that's not the reason?
Not really.
No. Okay.
I don't like wine, but I paint loads of wine.
That's true.
I love beer, but I haven't yet painted a beer bottle. Maybe I should do that.
You've done the tops, haven't you?
Oh, yeah, I did the beer bottle tops, yeah.
Beer
not
bottles
a wine
as
lover,
well.
really. But yeah, apart from that, no. So obviously that it's baby steps, and I'm feeling a lot better. I don't feel like a fraud anymore. I feel like I've just gone through this thing. I've shared it with everyone. Like we try and share everything.
Yeah.
What's real, don't we? And next time, actually, I know what we're going to go on today is not this, but next time you've just done a show, haven't you, which we're not really going to talk too much about today because we're going to do an episode on it.
You haven't asked me what's new. I haven't told anybody that yet.
Oh, okay, yes. Oh, well, let's get on to that then. What is new with you?
Had you finished?
Have I spoiled it? Have I spoiled it now?
Oh, yeah,
Everyone knows.
Yeah.
No, that's it. That's it for me.
All right, okay. Yes, so what's new with me, like you've just ruined, is that I've just done my first ever art and craft show. I did it was fairly local at this kind of old hall that has like these stables and buildings, and everybody's in these stables and buildings and stuff, and some people are outside. But the really sad thing was everybody was going, this is terrible. I've never known so little people come to this event.
But if you hadn't been there, if nobody had said that, would you have thought, oh, this is really quiet or not?
I would have thought it's really quiet because I've been as a person to look round before.
Yeah.
And Kevin came to bring me some lunch, and he said, oh my God, the car park is empty. And when we've been for lunch, and obviously we had to stay near the stall, but when we've been before, we've been in the courtyard and it's been packed. It's been hard to find somewhere to sit, or it's been really busy. And he said there's literally hardly anybody. There's about 8 people in the courtyard.
Oh, God.
So I don't know if they advertised it really badly or what, but every stall holder was saying, oh, my God, this is terrible. I mean, for me, I wouldn't have known for sure, but I'd have thought it was a bit quiet here. Do you know what I mean? And I didn't sell hardly anything. I mean, to be fair, I thought it might be the wrong place for me, but I just thought I'm going to try this just to try and get a bit of feedback on my work and stuff.
Yeah, and you were really nervous about it, weren't you?
I was really nervous, and I think one of the good that I see, I definitely don't regret doing it because now I won't be so nervous doing it again. Something similar. Well, I will be nervous, but you know what I mean? It's not quite such a big...
And also some of the preparation is done already, isn't it? In the fact you've bought the things you need and stuff.
And the people around me were lovely, all the stall holders. So I had an old couple who made ceramics one side, and she could talk the hind legs off a donkey. She was lovely, really nice, and they were really interesting. They'd been making ceramics. They were in the 70s. Well, he was definitely 72, so she must have been similar, I guess. They'd met at art college, and they'd been making ceramics since art college and dabbled in other bits of craft as well.
Oh, that's
and then
nice.
On my other side, there was this really lovely woman and her partner, and she made jewellery out of cutlery. And she was fantastic because she goes, I don't want you to be despondent. And then she goes, oh, why don't you try this gallery? And then she'd give it to me. And the next morning she goes, oh, I was telling you about a TV programme you could apply to. She goes, I've got all the details. I've got the email for you here.
Oh, fantastic.
So she was so good.
What TV programme?
So she was telling me about this programme called Make It and Market.
Oh, that's it. I've seen that. That's
I hadn't ever seen it before.
Yes, I've seen
it.
It's on
BBC.
Make it something and sell it or something. I don't know.
Make It and Market. It's on BBC.
Make It and Market.
BBC iPlayer.
Yeah. I've
BBC
seen it.
iPlayer. So I'd never watched it, and she said there was an artist on it who'd since then seemed to be doing really well. So she goes, you ought to apply for that. And so she'd got me the email address and everything. So today I've applied.
Oh my God, that's so exciting.
Well,
I'm so excited. Hang on. You don't know that. That.
But a lot of them are crafters. So mostly it's craft.
Exactly. Mostly it's craft. So maybe they'd be glad to have something else that's not craft but art. So they've got a bit of variety.
So we'll see. But anyway, I applied. So
Amazing.
yes.
That's brilliant. And so the show then, obviously you were saying that you were a bit disappointed there was no sales.
Yeah. No, there was sales, but not many.
Right.
And
you didn't know,
right?
did you? But I was just interested, going back to what you said about the turnout wasn't great. The town it was in, have they not got like a
it's
Facebook
not in a town.
page? Oh, I was going to say, because if that town had like a Facebook page, normally you'd get people going on there advertising something's going on. Oh, we've got a craft fair here on whatever.
It's a village. It's a village, but it's a hall. So it's like an old stately home kind of thing. But as part of a village. Yeah. But I mean, they should have been on Facebook, and I usually see it popping up, and I wonder if they hadn't put the event on there, or I don't know why.
Because that's the place, isn't it? And now, like to get to the people, the local people.
For local,
I mean, we live in a small town, and there's an even smaller one. It's a little village just down the road, and we've kind of there's a Facebook that lumps them both together. And if anything's going on anywhere, it'll always go in. It'll pop up on my Facebook straight away. So, and it's a great way of getting the word out. So I just wonder if they missed a bit of a trick there and just forgot to put it on Facebook or something.
I don't know, but I just know a couple of friends.
Go on.
A couple of friends of mine hadn't even seen it until I mentioned it.
Right. Oh, I see. Yeah. And do you think that next time you do it, obviously you've had to outlay some stuff, haven't you?
Yes.
So next time, I guess it'll be a lot more straightforward and cheaper, and you won't have to fret about getting things prepared and stuff.
Yeah, it will definitely cut out some of it. I have applied to do another one somewhere else that a friend of mine suggested, because she used to do a lot of shows with a photographer. She did them. She was doing their sales sort of thing. Yeah. So yes.
Well, I guess we shouldn't really talk too much more about it, because we're going to do a whole episode on craft shows, and I mean, I've done an exhibition, so we're going to talk a lot about that next time. And today we've decided, haven't we, we're going to talk about abstract, because somebody asked us if we would do an episode on abstract, and we've always been trying to find someone like an abstract artist to come on, haven't we? But we've sort of not managed to get someone that really fits the bill. So we thought, well, let's talk about it ourselves. So the first thing we should say is, for anyone listening who's unsure what makes an abstract piece of work, I guess, it's basically it's making something that doesn't necessarily attempt to represent the actual reality, isn't it? It might use shapes and colours and gestural marks to achieve that effect, instead of copying something, if you like. But Tara, I think I'm going to let you kind of kick off, because your work is far more abstract than mine, and you've dabbled in it a lot more than I have. So what are your thoughts on abstract?
Yeah, see, I wouldn't say I do pure abstract, but I abstract things. So I can only really talk from my experience of that. And I mean, I have tried pure abstract, but that was more doing something digitally, because I needed something in a certain colour to go in the bathroom. So it wasn't really a proper what I would call. But what I would say is, I think you get people who think, abstract, you just chuck a load of paint. Do you know what I mean? Or you don't really consider it. And from my personal experience, the first time I ever really attempted, apart from my bathroom pictures, to do something semi-abstract was, do you remember our Abstract Art April Challenge? Our first one, I think it was, we ever had. Yeah. And I thought, shall I try this? And I thought, yeah, let's have a go. And I tried to create some abstract faces, and the first ones were shocking, because I think you really need to get into the mindset of it, because I was so used to creating real, and I think, well, how do I go from this real thing to this not quite so real thing in my case? Yeah. And I think I realised from that abstract is definitely, or semi-abstract, is definitely something you can learn. It's not just going to happen overnight. And I think we tend to assume that because it's abstract, it will happen overnight. We can just put paint down and and it's easy, but it's not. I think it's a thing that the more you do it, the more you understand how you can make it work for you. I don't know about that. Do you think that?
I think there's this kind of myth, really, that anyone can do it. Abstract is easy peasy. You just, anything goes. And yeah, to a degree, anyone can have a go at abstract painting. But I do think you can tell the ones who are experienced abstract painters to the ones who are not. And usually the giveaway is the balance is all wrong. So you're talking about abstracting, say, a face or something like that, aren't you?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
With abstract something like maybe, I don't know, well, let's talk about someone like Jackson Pollock. Well, I always remember, actually. Did you ever watch One Foot in the Grave? It's a comedy.
Years ago,
a classic comedy here in Britain, One Foot in the Grave. And the guy who found in a skip what he thought was an original Jackson Pollock. And it turned out it was the bottom of a chicken run.
Oh,
just covered in chicken poo. And there were big splats of chicken poo. And he knew that his neighbour was a real art fan. So he gave him this picture to hang on his wall. Thinking he'd given him this Jackson Pollock. It was really funny. But that's sort of a classic example, isn't it? You're not, people don't necessarily understand an abstract. They just think, oh, it's just blobs here and there. But actually, in a good abstract, there'll be a balance there. There'll be a pattern that leads the eye. There'll be it'll work in black and white, whereas if you perhaps did the tonal values and you didn't take those into consideration, if you then turn that to black and white, it won't work. There's all sorts of, and it's like colour as well, the balance of colour. There's all these considerations these abstract artists they make, but somebody who doesn't know that will think, oh, anyone could do that, I could do that, but it's not as easy as you think, Even someone like Rothko, it's basically, you do look, I know I've looked sideways at some things and thought, really, why is that worth, thousands of pounds? It's basically a rectangle. There are some things I still raise my eyebrows at and think they're taking the mick, really, do you know what I mean? And they're just, I don't know, but there are other things I look at and I think, well, I can see there that isn't just that. It's not just what it seems. There is an element of interest to that you have to look for and you have to look a bit deeper into. Do you know what I mean?
I do, yeah. It's funny, actually, because I'd put down what you just talked about with the balance and the colours and everything. I'd actually put that as my second point. to talk about.
I've stolen something else of yours.
You have. Well, but we haven't seen these points either, which is kind of funny. But and it's something I really noticed when I started trying to abstract things. Yeah. Because you're no longer being literal to something you see, so therefore you can't necessarily use the colours you see. And do you know what I mean? You're having to kind of adapt and make things up because it's not on a picture. And then I'd sort of find myself thinking, oh, I've got a bit of red down there at the bottom of the face, so I need to add a bit to the top at the other side. Yeah. And I'd really start to think about it much, much more with things like that. And also shapes, if you've got a swirly shape one side, maybe you want it the other side, or you want something to clash. You want a sharper line because you've got a curve. And I think it makes you think much, much more.
It does, because you also want to avoid symmetry in an abstract way you can, and yet you've still got to balance those things. So you still, like you say, if there's a bit of red somewhere, you also need to have that elsewhere as well, even if it's very, very little bit. So you don't really notice it, but it's funny how it works. Abstract painting, I think, is a very complex art, isn't it? It's probably just as hard as doing something literal if you know what you're doing.
Yeah. I mean, I've actually never been brave enough, really, to try a pure abstract. Have you?
No, I've not, no. And yeah, it's funny, actually, because, a friend of mine, I mean, she sews, but she literally has got no experience in art at all. Never has, never been interested in it whatsoever. And I always remember when she did her bathroom, and then she just got a canvas from Hobbycraft because she said, I just need something colourful on the wall, and she just did tons of stripes of different colours on this without any thought at all, and put it on the wall, and it looked great. And I think it's just because she wasn't, and she wasn't thinking about it, but she just, it was what it was. She wanted 3 colours on her wall, and that's what she put on there. And there wasn't any thought, but it did work. It was it wasn't going to be like a piece of work for an art show or like that, but it worked for what she wanted it for. So yeah, of course you can do things like that. If you wanted to do an abstract for above your fireplace to match the sofa, get some splats of paint and splat it or whatever. But, there's a difference between that kind of thing and a more of a thoughtful kind of abstract, which is supposed to make you think. It's a bit like, you could abstract a figure, couldn't you? But sometimes you look at an abstract painting and you think, is that meant to represent a figure or not? Is it? I'm going to mention her again, aren't I? You know who I'm going to say. God, no, I can't. I can't talk about Carmel again.
No,
but see, she does like abstract figures, doesn't she? They're abstracted. You can tell they're figures, but you can go beyond that and do even more, where you're looking at something going, can I see that in this? And this is what I love so much about, Abstract Art April, where that's one of our challenges, which we've just finished now, actually, and as we record this. And the ones I love the most are the ones where I look at a piece of art and I think, oh, I think I can see like 2 birds and a blah, blah, blah. And it's not there. It's just what I see in it. And I like abstract paintings that make me wonder if I'm right. Does this represent that or not? And somebody else will go, oh no, I see this. And I love those sort of ones where they make you question what it's about and what is it, even more than I do probably the ones that are clearly an abstract of, a water and fish or what. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I was thinking, I've seen some abstracts, and I love it when you see movement in an abstract. I saw one not long ago, and I thought, oh, it's a fairground. Do you know what I mean? And it wasn't a fair. Well, it might have been. It might have been where the influence came, but it's just that moving. There was sort of loads going on, and it was just like, that bustling. You hate fairgrounds, I know. Bustling fairground sort of thing. Why do you hate a fairground?
I hate fairground. They're really creepy places. Yeah, that's where serial killers lurk. But anyway,
but I was going to say, I sometimes am very envious about abstract artists as well, because I think if you're looking for something for your wall, and you've got certain colours, in the rest of the room, you can always find an abstract that would sit well in there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas the stuff that you or I do, say, like, not everybody is going to want this weird face in their living room. Not everyone is going to want a wine bottle. But if you get something that you can't actually tell what it is, but it's got great colours, great feel for it, then I think it kind of fits many more rooms.
My Uncle Danny was
a
brilliant artist, and going back to what you were saying about you like abstract art that moves, and at first I couldn't quite get what you meant, but as soon as you said about the fairground, and I knew exactly what you meant. And he was one of these artists who could do anything. He could sculpt. He was an amazing sculptor, and he could paint realism, and he could paint amazing abstracts. And he did one which actually hung on my mum and dad's wall for years, and it was, if you look close up, it looked like, and it was quite impasto, real thick brush marks, real thick paint, and it just looked like sort of blobs and sweeps and more blobs, and this colourful, like, God, what, like an argument of colour on a canvas, for want of a better way of describing it. And but what was so cool about it was, as you move back from the canvas and you stand further and further back, you can actually see that what it is it's loads of soldiers sitting on horseback, and they are literally holding their shields and their swords and rushing towards the viewer. And it was incredible, so clever how he did it. But that you got all that movement just from these blobs of paint, and that's what it was. There wasn't a single face in it. You couldn't really tell. It's just how it all came together as a whole. It's so clever. So yeah, I'm with you there. I love those ones that create movement. But at what point does an abstract not become an abstract, if you know what I mean? So if you look at someone like, I don't know, Jackson Pollock, for instance, what I said earlier, that's obviously an abstract painter.
Yeah.
But what about someone then like Christian Hook, who, if anyone doesn't know who he is, look him up, the way he does portraits and things. Would you say that is still abstract painting, the way he painted in that Portrait Artist of the Year, where he kind of swept his sort of credit card through the paint and did these kind of swishes and scrapes, and it's no longer a realistic representation of that particular face, but it almost looks cinematic, and it's moving and it's pixelated. Would you say that's abstract, or would you just, or would you say that's not abstract? It's just a representational painting with abstract qualities?
I always call things semi-abstract, and I'm sure that's not a remote term in any sense, but that's how I tend to see things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess it's the individual decides if they call it abstract or not, don't they? I mean, I don't know if what I do, I always call mine abstract faces or semi-abstract faces, but are they abstract? They're certainly weird. They're not representational. Well, they're partially, I guess, representational.
I guess, yeah, I know what you mean. I guess Picasso, I mean, he's an obvious one to say, he's an abstract.
But is he,
But
though?
He's not those cubism, isn't he?
But
so
also,
is that abstract, or is cubism abstract just called something else? It's weird, isn't it, how it all have these names?
I would say cubism was abstract, but it was it's a way of abstracting.
Yes.
So it's abstracting with angles. Right. I mean, I don't know if you could pointillism. Would you call that abstraction? I don't know.
Yeah, it's an interesting sort of blur of what is an abstract and what isn't. I mean, if I was to say what I would think was an absolute abstract, it would be when you go into someone's house and on the wall they've got this canvas, and it's nothing in particular. It's just sweeps of colour, shapes, and it just creates a mood. I would say that's probably what I would call a true abstract. And other things I see as things that have been abstracted. So it's not what what it is, but it's done in an abstract way, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I'd probably say the same. I mean, I see a lot of things as well, like you were saying about the person's wall, and they've got this, and it just seems like dabs of colour. But you'll also see some of them, and you think, well, is that based on a land? I'll often say, is it based on a landscape? Because it kind of looks landscape-like. Yeah. And I was thinking, are there just different ways that you can create abstract? Because, like, some people might just start by making marks, and there's no representation at all. It's just literally intuition, what they feel works as they build it up. Then other people like myself might use images as a starting point. I mean, I've seen a classic way of creating abstract. Someone's taught this, and I can't even remember who it was. I mean, I think I even learnt it at college, was to take a section of a photo, blow it out really big, and paint it. Yeah. I mean, that's another way of making an abstract, isn't it? I don't know. Yeah. But would you call that abstract or not? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it is in a way, because, I mean, if you think about an abstract photograph, you know, when people do that, we do, one of our challenges is that, isn't it? Do a photograph, an abstract photo, which is basically such a close-up of something, you can barely tell what it is. It doesn't have to be that, but that's a lot of the way that people do it, don't they? And it's it's
I think it's just one of those things, isn't it?
Complicated. Yeah, it's complicated. What annoys me though is when people say, "Oh, a 6-year-old could do that."
Yeah,
however,
I mean, sometimes a 6-year-old could do it.
Yeah, I was going to say, however, there are times when I've thought that. and especially before I ever did art. I think before I ever did art, I didn't understand abstract at all. I just thought, what a lot of nonsense. And now I do art and I understand it. I can see the complexity of it, if you know what I mean. I can see it's not just, slapping a bit of paint on. Sometimes it can be, obviously. Sometimes people do that. There are things as well that do make me raise my eyebrows, like I said earlier. I mean, if I go into a gallery now and I see a painting of a red blob in the middle of a canvas, and because of the name on the canvas, it's worth thousands of pounds. To me, that's just an absolute mickey take, isn't it? It really is. So that I do raise my eyebrows at, and I think it's that kind of thing that gives abstract art a bad name, I think.
Something I really like about the idea of abstracts is that it's quite inclusive, isn't it?
Yes.
So if you've got someone who thinks they can't draw, and say a little workshop for creating your own abstract came up, most people probably wouldn't be so daunted to have a go at that as they would be, say it was to draw a bird or draw a lion. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah.
It's the sort of thing that even though we know what's involved to create a good abstract, anybody would probably feel like they could give it a go. I mean, Kevin has even said to me before, he wouldn't mind having a go at creating an abstract sometime, just because he feels he can't draw, but it would just be quite interesting to see what he came up with.
Yeah. I'd love to see Paul do that because he's colourblind, but apparently colourblind people are really, really good with patterns. So they see things that other people don't. Like they notice things that other people don't. So
get him set up with a canvas. They are.
Yeah, I'd love to. I don't think
both
he would.
Both of you do one. Both of you do an abstract together.
Oh, we could do a Titanic, where one's laying there naked while the other one's...
Yeah, I don't want to know about what you're doing.
While the other one's painting. I think that's the only way I could ever get him on to paint anything is if I promised to be his model. He'd do it then.
Try it. Try it.
This is what I loved about... Ages and ages ago, there was this... you might remember it. Program. God, what was it called? Oh,
you told me about one.
Yeah, do you remember we interviewed Callum Stephen?
Yes,
and very, very early on in the podcast, and he
you
was,
did, didn't you?
Yeah, and I think he was a runner-up. I think he was one of the top 3. I can't remember if he comes second or third, but in this program, and I can't remember what the program was called, but basically it took a load of artists and they were coming to this competition, and it was all about trying to get them to loosen up and be creative, be more creative. Well, he was a realism painter, and he did things like, and still does actually. In fact, he's a brilliant painter. I do follow him still, and he's got better and better. He's amazing. But he was doing things at the time like packets of M&Ms, which I've seen before online. Where they do the packet and the colourful sweets, and it's amazing. And he was doing realistic things like that. And since then, he's done a lot more. He does so much more. Complicated subjects, and he's incredible. But at the time, as a realism painter, they were sort of saying to him, okay, I want you to use this mop bucket of paint to create the feeling of ballerinas moving around on or whatever. Yeah, I don't think it was necessarily that, but it was stuff like that. Or using like a 6-foot stick to try and draw, on the surface in front of you. And then they do things like, I remember they had a load of dancers. They all had to stand there with their easels, and they had a load of dancers dancing around, and it was flamenco, I think it was. might have been ballerinas, I can't remember, but they were all sort of spinning around the dance floor. And these artists were having to sort of sit there and try and capture all of this movement. And of course, as a realism painter, he was really struggling. He really, really did struggle. And I really felt for him, because if you watched the program and you didn't know what he was capable of, you'd think, he's not, someone who perhaps would be natural artist, but actually he really was. It's just that it was so out of his comfort zone. And often I think realism painters, and it's the same for me, I guess, is that you find it harder to let go because you're not used to doing it.
Yeah.
And so you can kind of feel a bit like a rabbit in the headlights, if you're suddenly somebody's saying, right, do this, and you're looking at it thinking, what? I need 4 hours to do that, But it's a really interesting program, and I really enjoyed watching how they really had to make these people change their mindset and just do it. It was a kind of just do it approach and stop overthinking it. It's very, very hard, though, if you're not used to doing that and painting that way.
It's like I said before, it's something you assume that you should be able to do straight away, but I think it's definitely something that the more you did it, like if you had to draw those dancers moving and you did it several times a week, then in 6 months' time, you'd probably produce something really good, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
But the first time you attempt it, you're just scratching around and wondering where to even start, aren't you? I think most people would struggle with something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I'd have problems with the tonal values and the colour balance and the understanding the pattern and all that sort of thing. But I think I'd have a problem with just doing one full stop. Because
they're just moving. How do you... I mean, unless you're good at holding a picture in your head. Yeah.
I guess it's something you build up as you go, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not something you can't... I think with an abstract, you can't really visualise what's coming. You make it work, you build it, and you think, right, okay, well, that needs something. It might start with a sweep of paint. So you might just sweep a paintbrush across the canvas and you've just got this energetic, bright turquoise stroke. And then you have to think, okay, right, I'm going to start from there. What goes, perhaps what colour would I use with turquoise? Or maybe a subtle orange or a peachy colour would go beautifully with turquoise. So I want to get that somewhere, but I don't want to use a sweep of paint. So how about I sort of do some, splats or shake or, fling my brush and create these splats across the canvas. And then maybe it might be like, well, they look a bit contrived now. Perhaps I'll sweep my credit card through and mix the two together. And then that doesn't work. So you think, okay, well, I'm going to go over that and I'm going to do this. And it's sort of, I think a lot of abstract is like that. It's like building something without having any plans. You just have to sort of take each stage and then think, okay, right, that works. So what next? What should I do now? I've noticed that there's so much turquoise over there and very little down here. I need to somehow pull that together, and do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, there's an artist that I sometimes chat to on Instagram, and she says that some of her paintings have so many layers because she'll be basically do that. She'll do something and then it'll be like, oh, I don't actually like that I've done, or it doesn't work. So then she'll wait for that to dry and then she goes over the top and it might completely change. Whereas when we work, it's probably, it might look completely polished, but you'll kind of see what we're getting at, won't we? But hers could look completely different at the end to what it started at.
Yeah. No, it's clever. If you think about when, you see these videos, don't you? And somebody sort of pixelates an area because they don't want you to see it.
Yeah.
That's the sort of way I would look at abstracting something. So you can pixelate it to the point where you can still roughly see what it's meant to be.
Yeah.
Or you can pixelate it to a point where you literally can't. But what you're doing is it basically now just looks like squares of colours all mixed up and you really can't tell what it is. Do you know what I mean?
I want to see you do that then. That's your next painting.
What, to pixelate one of my paintings? Oh, Chase. Do you know what, though? perhaps I should. Perhaps I'm not saying I will do this at all, but maybe I do remember seeing actually. Paul and I went to this gallery in Tunbridge Wells a long time. In fact, it might have. Yes, it was Tunbridge Wells, and it had on this wall. It had a massive painting, and this painting would have been over 6 foot by 6 foot. It was a massive square, and it was basically a donut with icing on and hundreds and thousands. I always remember it. And what was so clever about it is when we walked in, it was on the far side of the gallery. So you walked in and you saw this realism painting of this donut with hundreds and thousands. And then as we walked closer and closer, the brush strokes were becoming more and more obvious, and then they were becoming this sort of mishmash of just marks. And then the closer we got, we were like, and Paul said, wow, this is really loose, isn't it? I mean, you can't, when you're looking close, it looks almost like a bit of a mess, like it's unfinished.
Yeah.
But then as you walk further away, it becomes this, realistic donut. It's quite clever, really. So this person must have a massive art studio with a runway between them and the, because that's the only way you could really get it to work, is to go down and put some marks down and then go right back and think, okay, yeah. I'd love to have that much space in my art room, wouldn't you?
Yeah, me too.
To do something like that. That would be pretty cool to try, actually.
You should try it.
Yeah, it would need to be on a very big canvas though to get that effect. That's not something you could really do on a small canvas, I don't think.
I wonder if you could do it small, but do you know what I mean? Almost the same, so then you wouldn't have to stand quite so far away.
Yeah, maybe. I don't think you could do it small, but I think
not small, but maybe the size you normally work, kind of thing.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to try something like that. I mean, like I say, I've been so blocked lately that I could just do something for the hell of it on just a cheap canvas, just to see what happens,
Just for fun, yeah. Now, I wondered, I don't know if you've got anything else to talk about with the general abstract, or whether we should share some ideas of how either what we tried, or ideas of how maybe you could try abstracting.
Okay, you start then, because
I've got a list, so I can just shout them all out if you haven't got any. So, so the first one I thought, how we said about before, is to take that small element of a photo and use that as a starting point. I mean, I think that's something anybody could try, and you wouldn't even have to literally draw it. You might just look at it and think, okay, it's got a bit of red there, it's kind of got a triangle there, and it's a start, I think.
And you could do that from a realistic painting, do you think?
Well, you could do it from just taking a photo of anything, couldn't you? You could go out to the garden, take a bit of a leaf and a brick, and you could take it of a photo you take on a holiday of a bit of the ocean, and it could be anything.
Yeah.
As long as you went in close enough, you're going to get some interesting shapes, aren't you?
Yeah.
I could probably take one of my desk. It's such a mess. There's plenty on there. But so have you got any, or shall I?
No, you carry. Well, no, I mean, I've got the obvious ones which I've seen people do, which is like sweeping, doing something that they would normally do. But then, when you see this, like, say, for instance, again, Portrait Artist of the Year or Landscape Artist of the Year is one where they typically do this quite a bit, and you'll see this amazing painting. You'll go, wow, that is so good. And then just as you think, wow, it's amazing, they go and get a great big piece of card, and they just slice across it, and you're like, oh my God, what have you done? You've ruined it, sort of thing. But actually, sure enough, it works, because they then go on to do something else, and you just think, oh God, I would never have been brave enough to do that. So I guess if you ever have a painting that doesn't feel like it's going right, or if you're brave enough and you've got a painting that is going right, but you just think, sod it, I'm gonna have a go at this, just slice through it or scrape across it with a scraper or a palette knife, and just see the effects that can have. And work. I've
torn up paintings like that. I have actually. I've done like a face, and I thought, oh, that's rubbish. So I've torn it up, put bits back together, and then drawn over the top of it. And I've still hated it, but other people on social media have loved it. And I thought
it's like collage, a sort of a cross between collage and abstract, then, isn't it? Yeah.
Another way, the really obvious way, is just to squint at something and draw shapes. So you're taking from realism again.
I do believe that there was an artist, and I can't remember who it was. And they used to have glasses,
Yeah.
but they didn't need glasses. But what they used to do is they used to smear the glasses with Vaseline.
Oh, yeah.
So and this was so that everything was blurred, but they didn't have to get crow's feet by keep squinting.
Ah, that's clever. Very clever.
And it was clever.
Get the Vaseline out.
Yeah, she said, "Oh, it's just literally just makes everything. It just you can sort of see the colours and the tones, but you can't really make out what it is. Everything's a bit of a blur, which is quite a cool way of doing it, isn't it?
It is, yeah. That's clever. Another thing, it's almost like you were talking about with the mop, is use something that's difficult to control and allow interesting things to happen. And I love this. I mean, the way I paint is this, basically, because I'll use the dropper top of the ink bottle to actually start the drawing, and then I'll use like kids' sponge brushes and rollers, because there's no way you can be accurate with stuff like that.
No.
I mean, I've talked before, haven't I, about someone on Instagram, and she'd attached her brushes to like garden canes or pencils to garden canes. Anything like that. I love stuff like that.
Someone on our group was doing. They'd done a. I think it was a continuous line drawing. Of a man. I think he was wearing a hat. It's just a continuous line, black pen drawing. That was it. And what they'd done though is, for some reason, it had bled through to the page behind, and the page behind had got a bit wet.
That was Rob, wasn't it?
Was it Rob that? Was that Rob? Are you sure?
It was a face, yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of like head and shoulders, and it had bled. And when I looked at it, I thought, oh God, that looks really amazing. It looked almost spooky, but it looked really sort of eerie. And I thought, wow, that's the art. Is that one that's the accidental thing that happened underneath? And that's the sort of thing I love, is those accidental pieces of art where you do something like that, and it's like, oh, can't believe that's just happened. But yeah. Really good it was. I don't know if it was Rob or not, but
I'm pretty sure it was Rob.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think so. Sorry, Rob, if it wasn't. But I mean, that's almost like the old palette, isn't it? When the leftover paint on a palette looks really cool.
Do you remember as kids at school, we used to have to put a blob of paint, a few different colours on one side of a page, and then you fold it in half, and then you squish it all down, and then you open it up. I mean, that's another way of abstracting something, isn't it? And it always used to look amazing, didn't it? Always just looked like a butterfly.
Mine didn't look amazing, no.
And I've seen some amazing things like that.
It?
Somebody on Instagram once, they'd put this, they'd dipped this piece of sort of quite thick string it was, and they dipped it into this really fluid acrylic paint. And then what they'd done is they opened their sketchbook and they kind of let this string kind of plop down onto this sketchbook, but they kept hold of the very end of the string, so it kind of all bunched up. And then they closed the sketchbook over the string, and then they just pulled it really slowly out from the bottom of the sketchbook. And when they opened it, it looked amazing. I tried it and it was absolutely awful.
No.
But when they did it, it created this. I mean, I only tried it a couple of times, and I think I was using the wrong paper, and the paper wasn't slippy enough and whatever. But what they did, when they did it, it looked like this amazing kind of like lily leaf that had sort of curled and just looked incredible. So there are ways you can do abstract by using these things like that, and then working with them afterwards, working over them, or.
Yeah, I mean, I think a classic way to make something semi-abstract is use blind contours, isn't it? Like you've been doing lately.
Oh, I really enjoyed that. Yeah. I guess I'd call that naive.
I mean, it's definitely not pure.
No, it's kind of recreating naive art, isn't it? Which I kind of like, and I'll tell you why I think I like those drawings. The blind contour drawings so much. Yeah. I think it's because they are very childlike drawings. That's just how they come out. It takes your mindset back to that period of time when you were a child and you thought every single thing you did was a masterpiece, because and your mum would put it on the fridge. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It kind of, I don't know if that's sort of partly why I really like it. Because you're like, it's just that brings out that child in you going, oh my God, look what I did.
I think it makes something interesting, doesn't it? It makes unexpected, it's like the unexpected mark making, I guess.
Yeah. I was thinking of trying to do one, but doing it.
You said you were going to do one of all your family.
With a big chunky marker.
Oh, with a chunky marker.
Yeah, I would like to. But with a big, on a big sheet of paper with a chunky marker, with a calligraphy end, the chisel bit.
Yeah.
And try and do it like that and see, an arm's length and just see what happens. That would be quite cool.
Yeah, try it.
Yeah, because I'm quite interested in trying some stuff that's quick and not using, loads of really expensive art materials. Just having a bit of an experiment,
Another thing I've tried, and that is to join up elements that wouldn't normally be joined. So this is more for semi-abstract. So I might start drawing an eye really loosely, and I'll let the line flow into the nose. And I might even overlap stuff as well. I think that can be quite interesting.
Would you ever mix up the order of the face? So would you ever think, I'm going to do a nose sort of on the forehead?
No.
Or would you go that mad?
Probably
or you
not.
Wouldn't, no.
But I do put the ears. I do put the ears really low sometimes. I put the ears almost on the neck sometimes, deliberately. Or I don't give it ears. But no. And I have done double eyes before, stuff like that.
Double eyes, yeah. Oh, you could do someone drunk.
Well, it was basically like me having a vertigo, like I've had for, the other week.
Oh, God, yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, that sounds awful. But
I think another thing.
Go on then, how else?
I think a classic one is just by making marks. If you just get different mark making tools, like your twig, your gone off brush that's all dried up, and just start making marks. I think that's a really interesting thing to do. I mean, you've done that with drawing more realistic things, haven't you?
Yeah, but I like, if I was going to do that, I think I'd like to do that without having anything in mind of what I'm going to draw. And just use the marks and enjoy the marks. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I've never, I can't sit here and say, oh gosh, I know everything there is to know about abstract art. I don't. And that's why we've been trying to find an expert. But this is just our take on it, isn't it? And you certainly abstract things in many ways. But I do enjoy abstract art. I enjoy looking at it and I enjoy learning about it. And I enjoy looking at what makes it work. And I also laugh at what doesn't make it work. And by laugh, I mean when these incredibly famous artists do it and make loads of money and you think, oh my God.
Lucky devil, that's what you think.
How do you do that? Yeah.
I've got another one, and this, actually, I should have said this when you mentioned about moving features. But working semi-abstract, try replacing elements with other things or moving them a bit. So, for example, maybe if you create a face, maybe the eyes become triangles or flowers, or do you know what I mean?
Didn't you do something like that before with a vintage telephone?
Yes, I did use a telephone. It was actually an exercise from a course from sketchbook school. And what I think I adapted the exercise because I did it how you were supposed to, which was basically just draw a load of different objects and then you would piece them together. Yeah. Well, this one, I just wrote down a list of objects and then drew them together. So it was bringing together a telephone and a person and some other things. Yeah. So that's a fun thing.
I love that. I love that one. I really love that one. You should put it in the show notes.
What, the picture?
So people know what we're on about, because I really enjoyed that one. I know it's an old one, but I really enjoyed that one. That was one of my favourites.
This is another one, a bit like you were saying about Christian Hook. You know how he puts a credit card thing through things. This is just a really fun thing to try that I've done before, is to draw with water-soluble media. And then when you get near the end or part way along, take water on a sponge or a credit card and just pull it through in different bits. Fun.
Yeah, and those sort of things you learn at primary school, some of these things, don't you? And you forget.
You do, yeah.
You forget how much fun it is. Yeah.
This is one I've used when I first started doing abstract faces. Not the very first ones I tried, which were a disaster. But once after that, I started using the photo manipulation app. There's loads where you can just on your phone, you just have a photo, and then you can make the eye bigger, you can make the mouth smaller, you can make it blur off, and basically you mess about with a face, or you could do it with other things. You could do it with a landscape, anything, and then use that as your starting point.
Yeah. Do you think it's time to read out the answer to our last question?
I do, and the question was, have you ever been through a serious art block, and if so, how did you pull yourself out of it? So I've got the first...
And obviously that was a completely selfish question. That was me asking you all out there. Help!
So I've got the first one, which is Carol Whitmore, and she says, Julia Cameron, The Artist's Way, and I think she's referring to the book and how it helped her.
Yeah, I've got that book actually. I don't remember. I didn't enjoy it, but so many artists say it's brilliant. I wasn't so keen, but maybe I should have a little flick through it again. I've got Craig Pickles. Never really classed myself as an artist, I guess. Just someone who liked to draw. Although I did a few commissioned portraits for friends and paintings over 10 years ago. Then just stopped. I'd pick up a pencil and just wasn't really into it. Kept drawing, did some online classes, got bored, but no real desire. Then last November, a friend recommended this group. I've never looked back. I've gone through 2 Moleskine sketchbooks and now on a watercolour Moleskine book. Never watercoloured until this group, and now I reckon I would probably look at myself as an artist. Thank you, Tara, Roscoe and Sandra Busby and all of the positive artists in here. I love that comment. I really do. Yeah, it really is. Thanks for writing that, actually.
I mean, it's similar to me as well. I mean, that's what got me painting again, taking part in challenges. So I think it does work.
And the online classes, I think you've sort of said that they're so good. And I think that's another thing I definitely think I might. Well, I definitely might. Yeah. I have been thinking about, maybe I should do some classes in things that I've never tried before, just to definitely get my juices flowing again.
Right, I've got Andy W. Art. At work, I have to remind myself it's my job, and not finding a way through it is unprofessional. If it's a personal project, I time out and go do some sketching, find a cool image such as a friend's holiday photo, and just sketch what I see in my mind. Imagine the privilege of being there.
I've got Emma Miller. I'm actually going through a bit of a block at the moment, trying other creative outlets like embroidering, past drawings and paintings to keep busy. These tips are good, she says. So she's obviously been reading them all of these ones that have been written down. Yeah.
I've got Rob Myers, and he says, when I get artist block, I know it's time to have a break, as the creative journey is supposed to be enjoyable. After a small break, I always find my mind full of fresh new ideas.
I've got Melanie Forrester Brooks. I tend to go the other way and I get over-inspired, so much so that it's hard to stop and create. I've prompted out an interesting journal, but now that I'm half finished and still jotting down ideas I want to try, I'm about to loosely lay out 2 more. Once I know the ideas are jotted down, I can get back to actually making something. I know you've had this problem, haven't you? I remember you saying to me, I have too many ideas that I never actually do any of them because I'm too busy thinking of ideas.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Yeah. Good problem to have.
It is. I've got Kerry Caffin, and she says, I think the block is a sign that you need to change direction just a little or a lot. If you've got bored, unstimulated, or lose a passion for creating, it's because you have exhausted that area and need to try something new for a while. I think Kerry's giving you some advice, Sandra.
Yeah, Kerry's a great friend of mine, known her for years, and so I'm sure she'll be giving me a kick up the bum at some point.
Yeah.
I've got Martina Hansen. I got a new job. My job is to make sure everything goes right in exams. I saw a picture in an ink scribble, as usual, and I just couldn't stop trying to finish the picture. To make time go faster, I began to modestly sketch during the exams. I found out that I need to work on my techniques, so I did, and here I am. I've been sketching, painting and drawing throughout my whole life. I'm not bored when I draw, I'm inspired. In Sweden, you're allowed to call yourself an artist with or without art education. I'm a multi-artist, as we say. Art is just a small part of everything I can do.
I've got Maggie Fitz. Yes, several times, literally years between creating. The first time I worked through Artist's Way by Julia Cameron in a group online. The second time I found challenges to be really helpful for getting me to create every day. Inktober and this site were game changers for me.
So nice to hear all that. Curious Inky Me. I think these periods are needed. I'm not blocked, but just letting ideas percolate in my mind. We have to embrace the season of our creativity and conserve energy ready for when we bloom. So don't push it. I know it will come when it's ready. So it's time to get outside, swim, bake and calm my mind. And yes, sometimes it does last a while. Yeah, it's really good advice. So we have a new question for you. And that is, what's the most unexpected source of inspiration you've ever drawn from for your art? So what is the most unexpected source of inspiration you've ever drawn from your art?
As always, you can let us know in the Facebook group, which if you haven't already joined, I highly recommend you do. We'll put the question up there and on our Facebook page and, of course, on Instagram, which is Kicking the Creatives.
Yeah, and I hope that gave you the kick in the creatives you needed. Don't forget to pop to our website at kickinthecreatives.com to find out how you can take part in some of our upcoming creative challenges. And of course, there you can also subscribe to this podcast so you never miss an episode. And if you're enjoying the podcast, we would be so grateful if you would leave us a little review on iTunes or whatever platform you use to listen to us, or just a star rating if you don't have any time. In fact, anything you can do to help is great, isn't it? Even sharing the episode would be,
on social or tell a mate would be fantastic.
Yeah, it really would. If you want to find either myself or Tara online, I'm on Instagram and TikTok under sandra.busby, but be warned, my Instagram is mainly about the art. My TikTok is some art, but other stuff you're probably not at all interested in. My website is sandrabusbyart.com. What about you, Tara?
You can find me on my website, which is tararoskellart.com. You can also find me on Instagram and Facebook. Also, both those places, I'm Tara Roskell Art. And also, don't forget to check out and subscribe to our Kicking the Creatives newsletter to keep up with the challenges and podcasts, which you can do via our website. Also, we've released a course, which is how to create characters and cartoons. And if you're interested, you can find a link to the course on our website or go to kickinthecreatives.com/cartoon course and find out more.
And if you enjoy what we do and you'd like to help support us here at Kicking the Creatives, you can now do so by buying us a coffee, and you can find the link on our website. And thank you so much to our recent supporters. Sana Sira, hers came with a big smiley face. We've got Zena, she says thank you for all of your commitment and enthusiasm. Alison Cochrane, very happy to support you lovely ladies, thanks for everything that you do. Gabriella, thanks so much for your daily inspiration, so happy I found you. Also, Joanna Brown, Marie McSween and Jeannie, thank you all so much. We really appreciate your support. But until next time, we will see you then.
Yeah, see you soon. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed the episode, and if you did, perhaps you'd like to share it and leave a review for us on iTunes. Back soon. Well, we're going to have to come to the end soon anyway, because my dog's staring at me. I've just realised I've forgotten to feed him his dinner.
Dinner time? Oh.
It was dinner time at 4 o'clock. He's looking at me as if to say, why haven't I been fed? I'm going to have to find a way of editing that bit out, aren't I?
No, you're fine.
Just licking. He's licking the floor. Sorry, I'm definitely going to have to edit this bit out. Shall I just go and feed him quickly?
Okay, go on.
It'll take me about 2 seconds.
All right.
Oh, God.